Worthless. You're absolutely worthless. Those words still echo in my mind, even 20 years later. I can still see my father's face, red with rage, as he threw my belongings onto our front lawn. My mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her silence more devastating than his shouts. I was 16, and my crime? Getting a B in advanced chemistry while working part-time to save for college. My name is Alexandra Mitchell, and at 36, I'm the CEO of Mitchell Pharmaceuticals, one of the fastest-growing biotech companies in Boston. But that evening 20 years ago, I was just a terrified teenager watching everything I knew crumble around me. If you can't maintain perfect grades, you'll never amount to anything. My father had screamed. We didn't invest in private schools and tutors for you to become mediocre. The rain had started to fall, soaking through my clothes as I gathered what I could into my school backpack. My younger sister Emily watched from her bedroom window, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't dare speak up. In our house, academic perfection wasn't just expected, it was the only acceptable outcome. That night, I slept in my best friend Maria's garage. Her parents would have let me stay in the house, but I was too ashamed to accept more than the minimal help. The next morning, I walked to school early, used the gym showers, and pretended everything was normal. But nothing was normal again. I spent the next 2 years bouncing between friends' houses and a small room I rented with my part-time job earnings. Despite everything, I maintained my grades, graduated valedictorian, and earned a full scholarship to MIT. Not that my parents knew. They blocked my number and told relatives I was away finding myself. Through it all, I kept focusing on one thing, my dream of making a difference in medical research. Every slight, every hardship, every lonely night only fueled my determination. I worked through college, took extra credits, and graduated early with honors in biochemistry. The irony? That B in chemistry that had enraged my father so much became the foundation of my career. The teacher who gave me that grade, Dr. Henderson, became my mentor. She understood that my slight drop in grades came from exhaustion, not laziness. She helped me secure my first internship, wrote my college recommendations, and later became my company's first board member. Now, 20 years later, I stood in my home office, staring at the email that had just arrived. Alexandra, your father and I need to speak with you urgently. We'll be at your house tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mom. No apology, no explanation, just the same commanding tone that had ruled my childhood. They found my address somehow, probably through Emily, who'd recently reached out after becoming a mother herself. I glanced around my office at the awards lining the walls, the framed magazine covers featuring my company's breakthroughs in cancer research. The view from my window overlooked Boston Harbor, a far cry from the garage I'd slept in at 16. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Dr. Mitchell, your 3 p.m. with the Japanese investors is starting soon. Should I have James bring the presentation files? Yes, thank you, Sarah, I replied, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling my mother's email had left. The next day at exactly 2 p.m., my security system announced visitors at the gate. Through the camera, I saw them, my parents, standing in front of my mansion's entrance. My father's hair had gone completely gray, and my mother looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than in my memories. They were dressed formally, as if attending a business meeting rather than trying to reconnect with their daughter. I watched them for a moment, remembering that rainy night, the weight of my wet backpack, the sound of my father's voice calling me worthless. My finger hovered over the intercom button. 20 years of silence, and now they needed to speak with me urgently. I had a pretty good idea why. Our company's latest breakthrough had been all over the news. Mitchell Pharmaceuticals had just received FDA approval for a revolutionary cancer treatment. Our stock had tripled overnight. The same parents who'd thrown me out for being mediocre were about to find out exactly what their worthless daughter had become. I pressed the intercom button. The walk from my front door to where my parents stood felt like crossing decades. My mother's eyes widened as she took in my appearance, the tailored suit, the confident posture, everything about me screaming success. My father's expression remained carefully neutral, though I noticed his hands fidgeting with his wedding ring, a nervous habit from my childhood. Alexandra, my mother started, her voice softer than I remembered. You look well. Thank you, I replied coolly. Shall we discuss whatever urgent matter brought you here? They followed me into my home office. their footsteps echoing in the marble hallway. I caught my mother staring at a framed Forbes cover featuring me under the headline, Biotech's Rising Star, the woman revolutionizing cancer research. Would you like something to drink? I asked, maintaining the polite distance of a business meeting. Alexandra, my father finally spoke, his voice cracking slightly. We need your help. Of course they did. I gestured for them to sit while I remained standing, a power dynamic they clearly found unsettling. Emily's daughter, your niece, my mother continued, clutching her handbag. She's been diagnosed with leukemia. The news hit me harder than expected. I'd never met my niece. Emily had only recently reached out through social media, sharing pictures of little Sophie. The traditional treatments aren't working, my father added. We've heard, your company's new drug is still in limited release, I finished for him. The waiting list is extensive. But you're the CEO, my mother pressed. Surely you could pull strings? Skip the proper protocols? I interrupted. Like when you threw me out for not being perfect enough? My father flinched. We made mistakes. Mistakes? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You kicked out your 16-year-old daughter for getting a B. You called me worthless. You blocked my number, told relatives I was troubled. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. We were wrong, my mother whispered, tears forming in her eyes. When we saw you in the news, your company's success, we realized how terribly wrong we were. Ah, I said, sitting down at my desk. So you're proud of me now that I'm successful? Now that I have something you need? The silence that followed was deafening. Through my office window, I could see the harbor, ships moving slowly across the water. Somewhere out there was the garage I'd slept in, the diner where I'd worked double shifts, the library where I'd studied until closing because I had nowhere else to go. Sophie is 6, my father said quietly. She loves science, just like you did at that age. She asks about her Aunt Alex. I opened my laptop, pulled up a file. The treatment protocol requires extensive testing and evaluation. There are no guarantees, and it's not something I can simply arrange with a snap of my fingers. We understand, my mother said quickly. We just thought that I'd forget 20 years of silence because now you need something from me. My father stood up suddenly. We know we don't deserve your help. We know we failed you. But please, don't punish Sophie for our mistakes. His words hung in the air as my assistant Sarah knocked and entered with a stack of files. Dr. Mitchell, the board meeting documents you requested, she said, placing them on my desk. And Dr. Henderson called. She'd like to discuss the pediatric trial expansion. Dr. Henderson, the same teacher who'd given me that fateful B, who believed in me when my own parents hadn't. The universe had a sense of irony. I turned back to my parents. I'll have my team review Sophie's case. Not because you asked, but because every child deserves a chance. I'll need her complete medical records sent to my office. Thank you, my mother breathed, reaching for my hand across the desk. I pulled back before she could touch me. This isn't forgiveness, I said clearly. This is me doing my job, the same job you once called worthless. As they stood to leave, my father paused at the door. We watched every news story about you, he said softly. Kept every article. We were too ashamed to reach out, but we're proud of you, Alexandra. Not because of your success, but because you became someone so much better than us. I waited until they left before letting out a shaky breath. On my desk sat a framed photo from my MIT graduation, just me and Dr. Henderson, both smiling. No parents in sight. Next to it was my first patent certificate, the foundation of my company's success. 20 years ago, they'd thrown me away for being imperfect. Now they were back, not because they'd changed, but because they needed something only I could provide. The irony wasn't lost on me. Their worthless daughter had become their last hope. I picked up my phone to call Dr. Henderson. We had a pediatric trial to discuss, and this time, I would be the one deciding who deserved a second chance. 3 weeks after my parents' visit, I sat in my office reviewing Sophie's medical records. Dr. Henderson stood by the window, analyzing the latest trial results. She's a perfect candidate for the treatment, she said, turning to face me. The genetic markers match exactly what we're looking for. Alexandra, we could help her. I nodded, staring at Sophie's photo paper-clipped to the file. She had my sister Emily's eyes and, according to her psychological evaluation, a passion for science that reminded me painfully of myself at that age. Have you spoken to Emily? Dr. Henderson asked gently. She was one of the few people who knew my full story, who'd witnessed firsthand what I'd gone through. She called yesterday, I admitted. First time in 20 years. She apologized for not standing up for me back then. Said she was too scared to defy our parents. And now? Now she's a mother watching her daughter fight for her life. It changes your perspective, I suppose. The next day, I had Sophie transferred to our research facility. I watched through the observation window as she arrived, a small figure clutching a worn chemistry textbook. My parents hovered anxiously in the background while Emily helped her settle into the hospital bed. Aunt Alex? Sophie's voice was small but curious when I entered the room. Mom says you make medicine that helps people get better. I try to, I replied, surprised by the warmth in my own voice. Is that why you got a B in chemistry? Because you were trying to help people? The room went silent. My parents stiffened and Emily looked mortified. But Sophie just smiled, showing a gap where her front teeth should be. Mom told me about when you were young, she continued. How you worked really hard and still studied lots and lots. I got a C+ on my last science test because I was too tired for my medicine. But I still love science. Something inside me broke and healed simultaneously. I sat on the edge of her bed, opening her textbook. Want to know a secret? Sometimes the best scientists aren't the ones who get perfect grades. They're the ones who never stop asking questions, even when things get hard. Over the next few months, I found myself spending more time in Sophie's room. Between treatments, we did science experiments, talked about chemistry, and drew molecular structures on her whiteboard. She had an intuitive understanding of concepts that amazed even our senior researchers. My parents maintained a respectful distance, speaking only when necessary about Sophie's treatment. But I caught them watching our interactions, saw the regret in their eyes when Sophie would excitedly show them something new I'd taught her. 6 months into the treatment, Sophie's results were promising. The cancer was responding, her numbers improving steadily. One evening, as I was leaving her room after explaining how polymers worked, my father was waiting in the hallway. I watch you with her, he said quietly, teaching her, encouraging her. You're everything we should have been. I'm just treating my patient, I replied, but we both knew it wasn't true. No, he shook his head. You're being the aunt she deserves, the mentor I should have been. Alexandra, we can never undo what we did to you. But seeing you now, seeing how you've used your success to help others, we were so wrong. You weren't worthless. We were. For the first time in 20 years, I saw genuine tears in my father's eyes. A week later, Sophie's latest results showed complete remission. As her family celebrated, I stood back, watching through my office window. Dr. Henderson joined me, placing a hand on my shoulder. You know, she said, sometimes the greatest achievements come from our deepest wounds. That B might have cost you your family, but it gave you the determination to build something extraordinary. And now, it's helped save your niece's life. Sophie was discharged the following day. Before leaving, she handed me a card she'd made, covered in hand-drawn molecular structures and a message. Thank you for showing me that perfect grades don't make perfect scientists. Love, your favorite niece. As I watched them drive away, I realized that while I couldn't forget the past, I could choose how it shaped my future. My parents' cruelty had driven me to succeed, but it was my choice to use that success to help others, to be the mentor and supporter I never had. The next morning, I approved the expansion of our pediatric program, ensuring more children like Sophie would have access to our treatments. On my desk, next to my awards and achievements, I placed Sophie's card, a reminder that sometimes our greatest wounds lead to our greatest healing. Perfect grades hadn't made me successful. Being thrown away hadn't made me worthless. In the end, it was the determination to prove them wrong, to be better than the people who'd hurt me, that had built my empire. And now, that empire was changing lives, one patient at a time. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong, it's proving yourself right. Hey there, I'm Mia. I'm 32, thriving in the marketing world, and living a life that looks like a dream on the outside. We've got the picture-perfect setup. A beautiful house in the suburbs, my amazing husband Derek, and our little boy Jack, who's 5 and the absolute light of my life. On social media, we're that family everyone loves to love, and secretly hates. But trust me, appearances can be very deceiving. It all began when I first met Derek's family. His sister Margaret seemed nice enough, but there was something a little off about her. And then there was their mother, Sandra. Sandra smiled at me like a shark circling its prey. During our first dinner, she looked me up and down and said, "Oh, Maya dear, that dress is interesting. I'm sure it was quite fashionable a few years ago." I plastered on my best fake smile and replied, "Thanks, Sandra. I just love vintage." Derek squeezed my hand under the table, blissfully unaware of the tension. As time passed, things only got weirder. Margaret was always dashing off somewhere, using vague excuses about work or meeting friends, but it never quite added up. One night, I mentioned it to Derek. "Hey, doesn't it seem like Margaret's been acting a little strange lately?" He just shrugged. "That's just Margaret being Margaret. You know how she is." But I couldn't shake the feeling. Thank God for my best friend and work buddy Allison. She's been my rock through all this chaos. "Girl, your in-laws sound like a nightmare," she said over lunch one day. "You have no idea," I replied, rolling my eyes. Sandra's backhanded comments, Margaret's sneaky behavior, it's just a lot. Little did I know, things were about to escalate. One Tuesday night, I was working late, finishing up a big presentation. As I was packing up to leave, I noticed Margaret's car in the office parking lot. "Weird," I muttered. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to peek through the office windows. There she was, in what should have been an empty conference room, arguing with a man who definitely wasn't her husband. They spoke in hushed, urgent tones, but I managed to catch snippets. "You promised me," the man hissed. "I want what's mine." Margaret looked panicked. "I'll get it, I swear. I just need more time." My heart was racing. What on earth was going on? I watched as Margaret handed the man an envelope. He glanced inside, nodded, and left. I ducked behind a cubicle as Margaret rushed out, her face a mask of worry. Once she was gone, I bolted to my car, my mind spinning. Was Margaret involved in something illegal? The next few days were a blur. I couldn't get the image of Margaret and the mystery man out of my head. What was in that envelope? Money? Drugs? My imagination went wild. I tried to act normal around Derek, but he noticed. "Babe, you okay? You seem distracted," he asked one morning over breakfast. "Just work stuff," I lied, feeling guilty. How could I tell them what I'd seen? Sandra's behavior got even stranger. She began showing up unannounced, her eyes narrowing as though trying to read my mind. "Ma, dear, you look tired. Is everything all right?" she'd ask, her voice dripping with fake concern. "I'm fine, Sandra. Just busy with work," I'd say, gritting my teeth. I had to tell someone, so I called Allison for an emergency lunch. When I spilled everything, she leaned in, wide-eyed. "Holy crap. What are you going to do?" she whispered. I sighed. Part of me wants to confront Margaret, but you're scared of what you'll find out? Allison finished for me. "This is serious. Be careful." Apparently, the universe wasn't about to let me take it slow. That weekend was Derek's birthday, and Sandra insisted on hosting a family dinner. Just what I needed. Being trapped with people I was lying to and those I was suspicious of. The tension was thick. Margaret kept checking her phone, looking jumpy. "Everything okay, sis?" Derek asked. "Fine. Just work," Margaret muttered. I couldn't help but snore. Margaret's head snapped up, and our eyes locked. In that moment, I knew she knew that I knew. Sandra, ever the hawk, didn't miss a beat. "Maya, dear, care to share what's so amusing?" she asked, her tone icy. "Oh, nothing," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just remembered a funny work story." The rest of the dinner was a minefield of loaded glances and thinly veiled hostility. By the time we left, I was a bundle of nerves that night, but I had made up my mind. I needed to confront Margaret. For the sake of my sanity and my family, I couldn't keep quiet any longer. The next day, after work, I cornered her in an empty conference room. "We need to talk," I said, my voice unsteady. Margaret crossed her arms defensively. "What do you want?" "I saw you," I blurted out. "Last week with that man." "What's going on, Margaret?" Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed. "I think I do," I insisted. "Are you in some kind of trouble? Is it drugs? Money?" Margaret let out a hollow laugh. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into, Mia. For your own good, stay out of it." "Or what?" I challenged. Her eyes turned cold. "Or you might find yourself in a situation you can't handle. This is bigger than you, bigger than all of us. Keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you." With that, she stormed out, leaving me shaken. That night, I tossed and turned, my mind racing. Finally, around 3:00 a.m., I drifted into a fitful sleep. When I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window, something felt off. As I sat up, an object fell into my lap. I looked down and froze. It was a lock of my hair. Panicking, I ran to the mirror. A chunk of my hair had been crudely cut away. On the dresser lay a note: "Keep quiet, or next time it won't be just your hair." My blood ran cold. Sandra had been in our house, in our bedroom, while we slept. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was war. Fuming, I stormed into the kitchen, the lock of hair clutched in my fist. Derek was making coffee, blissfully unaware of the storm about to hit. "Your mother was in our bedroom last night," I spat out. Derek turned, his face etched with confusion. "What? That's impossible." I thrust the hair and the note at him. His face drained of color as he read it. This can't be right. Mom wouldn't what? Threaten me? Cut my hair while I slept? Wake up, Derek. The argument that followed was brutal. Derek was trapped between disbelief and loyalty to his family, clinging to denial. "There has to be some explanation," he kept repeating. But I was done explaining, done being the victim. I called Allison, my voice shaking with anger. "I need your help," I said. "We're going to expose everything." Over the next few weeks, Allison and I transformed into amateur detectives. We dug into Margaret's financial records, tracked her movements, even followed her a few times. "Look at this," Allison said one afternoon, pointing to her laptop. "Margaret's been making large cash withdrawals every month." The pieces were starting to fall into place. But it wasn't just Margaret. As we dug deeper, we unearthed dirt on Sandra too. I read through old newspaper clippings, my heart pounding. "Holy crap," I muttered. Sandra was involved in a huge embezzlement scandal 20 years ago. It was all hushed up. The weight of our discoveries was staggering. This wasn't just about Margaret's secret. It was a web of lies and manipulation spanning decades. I knew it was time for a family intervention. I gathered everyone: Derek, his father George, even some extended relatives. Taking a deep breath, I laid out everything we'd uncovered. "This has to stop," I pleaded, "for all our sakes." For a moment, the room was silent with shock. Then all hell broke loose. Sandra stood up, her face twisted with fury. "How dare you, you ungrateful little—" "She's lying," Margaret shrieked. "She's trying to turn you all against us." Derek sat there, shell-shocked. George looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. What I'd hoped would be a moment of truth dissolved into chaos. Sandra and Margaret cornered me, spinning stories about how I was unstable, jealous, out to destroy the family. To my horror, people started to believe them. Even Derek looked at me with doubt in his eyes. "Mia," he said softly, "maybe you need help." "This obsession." "Obsession," I choked out. "Are you kidding me?" That night, I sat alone in our bedroom, the house echoing with emptiness. Derek had taken Jack to stay with his parents until things calmed down. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, at that uneven patch of hair slowly growing back. How had it come to this? I tried to do the right thing, to protect my family. Instead, I'd lost everything. For the first time since it all began, I broke down and cried. Sandra and Margaret had succeeded. They isolated me, made me look crazy. I was alone, defeated, with no idea how to fix this mess. As I sat there, surrounded by the ruins of my once perfect life, I wondered if there was any way back from this. Had I sacrificed everything in my quest for the truth? The phone rang, breaking the silence of my despair. It was George, Derek's estranged father. "Mia, I believe you," he said gruffly. "Meet me." We met at a rundown diner on the edge of town. George slid a thick folder across the table. It was filled with evidence of Sandra and Margaret's schemes. "I've stayed quiet for too long," he admitted. As we pored over the documents, a plan began to form. The upcoming family reunion would be our stage. "We need irrefutable proof," I said. George's eyes glinted with determination. "I'll handle that." On the day of the reunion, my heart pounded as I stepped into Sandra's meticulously decorated backyard. The air buzzed with anticipation as Sandra began her welcoming speech, oblivious to what was coming. George worked quickly, setting up a projector at the back of the crowd. The screen flickered to life, cutting through the chatter and silencing everyone. We presented our case. Emails, bank statements, and recorded conversations appeared on the screen, each piece more damning than the last. Margaret's money laundering scheme was laid bare, followed by Sandra's long history of fraud. The final blow, a recording of Sandra and Margaret plotting to frame me for embezzlement. Once Maya's gone, we control Derek's inheritance, Sandra's voice declared, cold and calculating. The crowd fell into stunned silence. Then chaos erupted. How could you? Derek's voice sliced through the noise, filled with disbelief and hurt. Margaret was the first to crack. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she sobbed. Mom said it'd be easy money. Sandra turned on her daughter, snarling, "You ungrateful fool. After everything I've done for you." But the truth was out, and there was no escape. The authorities arrived, and Sandra and Margaret were led away in handcuffs, their faces etched with defeat. In the aftermath, apologetic family members surrounded me, offering hesitant words of support. Derek approached, his eyes brimming with remorse. "Maya, I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at him, seeing both the man I loved and the one who had doubted me. "We have a lot to work through," I said honestly. Over the next year, I focused on rebuilding my life. My career soared as I regained my footing, and Derek and I entered counseling, slowly piecing our relationship back together. It wasn't easy, but we were committed to healing. One afternoon, standing in my new office, I received news of Sandra and Margaret's sentencing. A weight lifted from my shoulders. I turned to my desk, where a photo of me, Derek, and Jack sat. We were smiling, genuinely this time. The perfect facade was gone, replaced by something real and honest. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was better than any illusion ever could be. Hi, I'm Samantha, a third-grade teacher who thought she had life all figured out. Turns out, I was way off. There I was, knee-deep in old photo albums, trying to create a killer slideshow for my mom's 50th birthday. My tiny apartment was decked out in streamers, and my boyfriend, John, was lounging on the couch, chuckling at my dedication. "Samantha, you're going overboard. Your mom's going to love it no matter what," he said, munching on chips. I rolled my eyes. "John, you don't get it. Mom deserves the best. She's done everything for me." As I flipped through another album, something strange caught my eye. "Hey, that's weird," I muttered. John looked up. "What's up?" "These photos. The dates are all wrong, and Mom looks different here." I held up a picture of her supposedly on my 10th birthday, but her hair was short. I distinctly remembered it being long that year. "Maybe it's just an old photo," John suggested. I shook my head. "Look at the date. It doesn't make sense." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Mia, my best friend since forever. "Hey, you still coming over to help with the decorations?" "On my way, girl. I've got glitter and I'm not afraid to use it," I laughed, pushing the weird photo discovery to the back of my mind. Mom was always traveling for work when I was a kid. It was probably nothing. Later, as Maya and I were hanging a happy 50th banner, she asked, "So, did your mom bring you back anything cool from her latest trip?" I grinned. "A snow globe from Paris. It's so tacky. I love it." Maya laughed. "Classic Sandra. Remember when she missed your dance recital because of that emergency in Tokyo, but then sent you that amazing kimono?" I nodded, but something about that memory bugged me. "Yeah, it was gorgeous. But I don't think I ever saw any pictures from that trip." Maya shrugged. "Probably too busy working. Your mom's always been a superhero like that." As we finished up, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling. I found myself staring at the wall of photos, trying to piece together a puzzle I didn't even know existed. John came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Your mom's going to love this, Sam. You've outdone yourself." I leaned back into him, pushing down the doubts creeping in. "Thanks, babe. I just want everything to be perfect. She deserves it after everything she's done for me." Later that night, I slipped into Mom's office, my heart pounding. I'd never snooped before, but those photos were haunting me. "Come on, Sam, you're being ridiculous," I muttered, running my hand along the bookshelf. That's when I felt it, a slight unevenness in the wood. I pressed and a panel slid open, revealing the hidden safe. My hand shook as I tried different combinations. Her birthday, my birthday, nothing. Then it hit me, the day Dad died. Click. Inside, I found a stack of documents, birth certificates, 4 of them, all with Mom's name but different fathers. Financial records followed, showing huge sums of money, all paid to Mom. "What the hell?" I whispered, my vision blurring with tears. I called Mia, my voice trembling. "Maya, I need you, now." When she arrived, I spilled everything. Her eyes widened in shock. "Sam, are you sure?" I nodded, then froze as another horrifying thought hit me. Remember my high school graduation, when Mom was stuck in Singapore? Mia's eyes narrowed. Yeah. One of these birth certificates is dated just days after that, I said, my stomach twisting. Another memory surfaced, my scholarship ceremony. She'd missed it for an emergency in Frankfurt. Oh my God, Mia. Days later, I heard Mom's key in the lock. I sat in the darkened living room, the documents spread across the coffee table. She flicked on the light, and her smile faltered when she saw my face. Samantha, why are you sitting in the dark, sweetheart? Who are they? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Who are you talking about, darling? I held up the birth certificates. Don't lie to me, Mom. Not anymore. Her face crumpled. Samantha, I can explain. Explain what? I shouted, standing up. That you missed my graduation to have another kid? It's not that simple, she whispered. Then make it simple, I demanded. And she did. Every sordid detail. The affairs, the pregnancies, the blackmail. How my dad wasn't dead, just another victim of her schemes. I did it for you, she pleaded. To give you a good life. I laughed bitterly. A good life built on lies? Please, Mom. Samantha, forgive me. I love you. I stepped back, shaking my head. I don't even know who you are anymore. As I walked out, her sobs echoed behind me. My entire world had just shattered. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the send button. 4 messages to 4 strangers who were apparently my siblings. My head was spinning. Just do it, Sam, I muttered, hitting send before I could change my mind. The replies trickled in over the next few days, each one making my heart race. Coordinating the meeting wasn't easy. James was in Nashville, chasing his music dreams. Sophia was swamped with finals in Boston. Michael had just started a high-pressure job in Chicago. Only Lisa was local. We can all just drop everything and fly in. Michael's frustrated voice came through our conference call. Maybe we should wait, Sophia suggested hesitantly. No, I said firmly. We need to do this now, before she has a chance to cover her tracks. There was a long pause, then James spoke up. I'll book a flight. My gig can wait. I'll talk to my professors, Sophia added. I'll figure something out with work, Michael sighed. A week later, we all met at a cafe downtown. Walking in, I spotted them immediately, 4 people who looked just as lost and confused as I felt. A guy with shaggy hair and a guitar case stood up. Samantha, he asked, offering a small smile. I'm James. We introduced ourselves, each with an awkward nod. Sophia looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. Michael kept checking his phone, looking like he was on the verge of leaving. Lisa, still in high school, couldn't stop staring at us. So, I began, struggling to find the right words. I guess. We're family. James snorted. Some family. Did any of you even know the others existed? We all shook our heads. She told me my dad died, Lisa said quietly. But, he's alive, isn't he? Michael nodded grimly. They all are. I did some digging. She's been blackmailing them for years. As we shared our stories, a pattern emerged. Sandra, weaving in and out of our lives, always with an excuse, always with a gift to make up for her absence. She missed my first big show in Nashville, James said bitterly. Said she was at a conference in Dubai. My high school graduation, I added. She said she was stuck in Singapore. Sophia's eyes widened. That's when I was born. The realization hit us all at once. Sandra's business trips were lies. Every absence, every missed event, she was somewhere else with one of us. I flew all the way from Boston for this, Sophia whispered, her voice shaking. I can't believe. Hey, James reached out, placing a hand on her arm. We're all in this together now, right? Slowly, the tension began to ease. We were strangers, yes, but bound by a shared betrayal. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing with messages from Sandra, all of which I ignored. What do we do now? Lisa asked, looking scared. I took a deep breath. I think we need to confront her, all of us together. We spent hours planning, gathering evidence, and preparing ourselves for the confrontation. It was surreal, bonding with my newfound siblings over our shared trauma. Later that night, I found John waiting at my apartment. Sam, talk to me. What's going on? He asked gently. The floodgates opened, and I broke down, telling him everything. He held me as I cried, my world crumbling around me. I don't know who I am anymore, I sobbed. You're Samantha, he said firmly, lifting my chin. You're strong, kind, and way too good at charades. This doesn't change who you are. I managed a weak smile. I'm scared, John. I know, but you're not alone. You've got me, and now, you've got them too. As the days pass, we finalize our plan. We confront Sandra at her birthday party, the same party I'd been planning when this all started. It felt like a lifetime ago. The night before the party, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at old photos. Happy memories now tainted by lies. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Sandra. Samantha, please. I love you. Let me explain. I deleted it without reading further. Tomorrow, she'd have to face all of us. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out. The day of the party arrived, and my stomach was in knots. Guests filtered in, chatting and laughing, oblivious to the storm about to hit. James, Sophia, Michael, and Lisa were scattered around the room, blending in but exchanging nervous glances. Then Sandra walked in, beaming. Oh, Samantha, this is wonderful, she gushed, pulling me into a hug. I stiffened, feeling my skin crawl. Mom, I said loudly, my voice cutting through the chatter. There are some people here you should meet. My siblings stepped forward. Sandra's face drained of color. Duh, what? What is this? This, I said, my voice shaking, is your family, all of it. The room fell silent. I pulled out the documents from my bag. We found these, Mom. Care to explain? Sandra's eyes darted around the room, panicked. Sam, please not here. No, I cut her off. You don't get to hide anymore. I laid out everything. The birth certificates, the financial records. You missed my high school graduation because you were giving birth to Sophia. I said, my voice breaking. My scholarship ceremony. That was Lisa. One by one, my siblings shared their stories. James talked about missed concerts. Sophia about lonely Christmases. Michael about unanswered calls. Sandra crumbled before us, her perfect image cracking. I never meant for this to happen, she sobbed. The first time, I was scared. I needed money. Then it just spiraled. You lied to us our entire lives, Michael said coldly. I love you all, Sandra pleaded. Everything I did was for you. No, I interrupted, my voice steely. It was for you. We were just collateral damage in your schemes. The guests were murmuring, shocked. I saw Sandra's boss whispering furiously into his phone. Please, Sandra begged, her voice desperate. Forgive me. We can be a family. We are a family. Lisa, her voice quiet but steady, said, just not with you. One by one, we told Sandra we wanted nothing to do with her. As we walked out, leaving her sobbing in a room full of stunned guests, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Later that night, we gathered at my apartment, the air thick with unspoken words. So, what now? James asked, strumming his guitar absently. Michael leaned forward, his face set with determination. I've been thinking, we have a right to know our fathers. I want to find mine. A murmur of agreement swept through the room. Me too, Sophia said quietly. I have so many questions. It won't be easy, I warned. These men, they might not want to be found. Lisa nodded thoughtfully. But we deserve answers. We deserve to know where we came from. For hours, we talked, planned, and shared our fears and hopes. We each decided to begin the search for our fathers, to try and fill in the blanks of our lives and understand who we really were. But as the night wore on, something else became clear. James put it into words, looking around the room at each of us. You know, he said softly, no matter what happens with our dads, we've got each other now. We're family. Sophia wiped away a tear. A real family, not built on lies. We share the same pain, Michael added, the same betrayal. That's a bond right there. I felt a warmth spreading through my chest. We're siblings. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but in all the ways that matter. That night, we made a pact to support each other through our searches, to be there no matter what we found. Over the following weeks, we stayed in touch, sharing leads on our fathers, helping each other heal. I went back to teaching, finding comfort in my students' laughter. John stood by me through it all, his love a steady anchor in my shifting world. One night, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to see Sandra standing there, looking small and broken. Samantha, please. No, Mom, I said firmly. We've made our decision. All of us. We don't want you in our lives. She looked devastated. But I'm your mother? A mother doesn't do what you did. Goodbye, Sandra. I closed the door, leaning against it as tears fell. But these weren't tears of despair, they were tears of closure. The lies were over, and our truth was just beginning. Whatever we found in our search for our fathers, we knew we'd face it as a family bonded by shared pain, but also by love and understanding. The story has ended, but now I have a question for you. If you discovered your parent had secretly raised multiple families and lied to you your entire life, could you forgive them, or would you cut them out completely, as we did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Hey there, I'm Elizabeth. I'm 45, a single mom, and a high school teacher. Life's been a roller coaster, but I've always managed to keep things together. My daughter Hazel is 22 now, studying business in college. I swear, it feels like just yesterday she was learning to ride a bike. Mom, I need new textbooks. They're so expensive this semester, Hazel said, giving me that look she knows I can't resist. I sighed, checking my bank balance on my phone. Honey, I'll figure it out. Maybe we can find some used ones. But Mom, everyone else has the new editions. I'll be so behind. Lately, this kind of conversation has been a weekly thing. Don't get me wrong, I'd do anything for her, but it's getting harder to keep up with her demands. The other day, my best friend Lisa came over for coffee. Elizabeth, have you seen Hazel's new Instagram posts? Girls living large, she said, showing me her phone. I nearly choked on my coffee. Hazel was decked out in designer clothes, partying at a fancy club. My stomach dropped. Where's she getting the money for all this? Lisa asked. I shook my head. I don't know. Maybe her new boyfriend. Speaking of the boyfriend, John, met him once and got bad vibes immediately. Hazel used to tell me everything, but now it's like pulling teeth just to get her to say hello. At work, my colleague Mike noticed my distraction. Elizabeth, you okay? I forced a smile. Just parent stuff. Mike's a good guy, always there with a dad joke or a shoulder to lean on. Sometimes I wonder if there could be something more, but with everything going on with Hazel, dating is the last thing on my mind. Then just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Mrs. Thompson. This is Karen from Midwest Bank. We're calling about the missed payments on your loan. My heart stopped. I'm sorry, what loan? The personal loan for $50,000 you took out 3 months ago. You've missed the last 2 payments. I felt like I was going to pass out. There must be some mistake. I never took out a loan. Ma'am, we have the documents here with your signature. If you can't make the payments, we'll have to discuss default options. The room started spinning. A loan I never took, my signature. There was only one person I could think of. I hung up, my hands shaking. How could this be happening? I've always tried to do right by Hazel, to give her everything she needed. And now, this. The next morning, I marched into the bank, demanding answers. The teller handed me copies of the loan documents, and my heart sank. There it was, my signature. Perfect, down to every detail. But I had never signed it. Ma'am, are you all right? The teller asked, noticing my pale face. No, I'm not. This isn't my signature. I left the bank in a daze, clutching those damning papers. Back home, I waited for Hazel, my mind racing. When she finally walked in, I couldn't hold back. Hazel, did you forge my signature for a loan? She froze, eyes wide. What? Mom, that's crazy. Why would you even think that? Don't lie to me. The bank called. They have documents with my signature, but I never signed anything. Hazel's face crumpled, and she burst into tears. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. My world shattered. How could you do this? Do you realize what you've done? Through sobs, Hazel confessed. The partying, the shopping sprees, even gambling. It was like I didn't know my own daughter anymore. I'll fix it, Mom, I promise. Just don't tell anyone, please. I was torn. This was my baby girl, but what she'd done was criminal. Hazel, this isn't something you can just fix. We're talking about fraud. She grabbed my hands, pleading. Mom, please, I'll get a job. I'll pay it back. Don't ruin my life over one mistake. One mistake? This was a calculated series of actions. But looking at her tear-stained face, I wavered. I need time to think, I said, walking away. I called Lisa, my voice shaking. Can you come over? It's bad. Lisa arrived in record time, and I spilled everything. Elizabeth, honey, you have to report this. This isn't just about the money. She committed a crime. But she's my daughter. How can I turn her in? And what happens when they come after you for the money? You could lose everything. She was right, but the thought of Hazel in handcuffs made me sick. The next day at work, I was a mess. Mike cornered me in the teacher's lounge. Elizabeth, what's going on? You look like you haven't slept in days. I broke down, telling him everything. His face hardened. Elizabeth, I know she's your daughter, but you can't protect her from this. She needs to face the consequences. I nodded, knowing what I had to do. That evening, I sat Hazel down. This is your last chance. Tell me everything, and we'll figure out how to make this right. Hazel's eyes lit up with hope. Really? Oh, Mom, thank you. I promise I'll fix everything. We spent hours going over her spending, the full extent of the loan, everything. It was worse than I thought, but Hazel seemed genuinely remorseful, promising to get a job and pay it all back. I'll start looking for work tomorrow, she said, hugging me tightly. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But something in my gut told me this wasn't over. The next morning, Hazel was gone. Her room was empty, closet cleared out. On her bed was a note. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't face this. I love you. I collapsed to the floor, the note crumpling in my fists. My own daughter had run away, leaving me to face the mess she'd made. Sitting there, surrounded by the remnants of Hazel's life, I realized the true betrayal wasn't just the forged loan. It was the shattering of trust between a mother and daughter. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone, knowing the call I was about to make would change everything. But I had no choice. It was time to face the music, even if it meant losing my daughter in the process. I was in the middle of teaching algebra when it happened. The classroom door burst open, and 2 officers walked in. Elizabeth Thompson. Yes, that's me. What's going on? You're under arrest for fraud and identity theft. The students gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face as they cuffed me right there in front of everyone. The walk through the school corridors was excruciating. Colleagues stared, some in disbelief, others in judgment. The jail cell was cold and lonely. I sat there, replaying every moment with Hazel, wondering where I went wrong. The betrayal cut deep, leaving me raw and broken. Elizabeth, you've got a visitor. It was Mike, looking worried but determined. I've hired a lawyer for you. We're going to fight this. Mike, I can't afford. Don't worry about that now. We need to get you out of here. The investigation was brutal. They dug into every aspect of my life, revealing things about Hazel I never knew. Casino receipts, maxed out credit cards, a trail of lies that made me sick to my stomach. Your daughter has a serious gambling problem, Mrs. Thompson, the detective said, his voice cold. I lost my job, 20 years of teaching gone in an instant. The school board couldn't risk the scandal. Lisa was my rock through it all. She took care of my house, gathered evidence, and kept me sane during those long nights in jail. We'll get through this, Elizabeth. I promise. But Hazel and her boyfriend, John, had vanished, no calls, no messages. I was left alone to face the consequences of her actions. One night, lying on the hard jail cot, I hit rock bottom. I cried until I had no tears left, wondering if I'd failed as a mother, if this was all my fault. Then, a breakthrough. Security footage from a bank showed Hazel, clear as day, forging my signature. It was the evidence we needed. The day I was released, reporters swarmed me, cameras flashed, questions flew. My reputation was in tatters, but I was free. It was time to rebuild. Starting over at 45 isn't easy. I took whatever jobs I could find. Waitressing, tutoring, even walking dogs. More coffee, hon? I'd ask, swallowing my pride as I refilled cups at the local diner. Slowly, the truth spread. People who had judged me began to see the real story. Old colleagues reached out, offering support and apologies. We were wrong about you, Elizabeth. We're sorry. Then came the news that changed everything. Hazel and John were caught at the Canadian border with fake passports. The prosecutor called, asking if I wanted to press charges. It was the hardest decision of my life. I'm sorry, but I can't protect her anymore. She needs to face the consequences. The trial was a media circus. Hazel pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Then, in a shocking twist, John turned on her. He claimed it was all Hazel's idea, saying she believed her mom would never turn her in. Hazel's face crumpled, betrayed by the very person she had chosen over me. The judge's gavel came down hard. Hazel, 5 years. John, 18 months with a plea deal. When it was my turn to speak, I stood tall, facing my daughter for the first time in months. Hazel, I love you. I always will. But love doesn't mean enabling destruction. You broke my heart, shattered my trust, and nearly ruined my life. I hope you find help and peace, but I can't be part of that journey. Goodbye, Hazel. I walked out of the courtroom, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. 1 year later, life looks different. I started a support group for parents like me, turning pain into purpose. After a lengthy review, the school board reinstated me with a public apology. Lisa and I meet for coffee every week, our bond stronger than ever. And Mike? Let's just say second chances aren't just for careers. Ready for dinner? Mike asks, taking my hand. Almost. Just got some news. Hazel's appeal was denied. I feel a twinge of sadness, but mostly relief. As we walk out, I realize I'm finally at peace. I've learned to prioritize my own well-being and surround myself with genuine love and support. Life threw me one hell of a curveball, but I'm still standing, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next. The toxic people in my life are gone, and I've found my own kind of justice, the peace that comes from letting go and moving forward. The story you've just heard is over, but the conversation is just beginning. So now, I want to ask you something that cuts to the heart of this tale. If you were in my shoes, would you have turned your own child in, knowing it could mean years in prison, or would you have tried to protect them, even at the cost of your own freedom and reputation? It's not an easy question, is it? Hazel is my daughter, my flesh and blood. The instinct to protect your child is one of the strongest forces we have as parents. But on the other hand, her actions were deliberate, repeated, and caused immense harm. She betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. What do you think is the right thing to do in a situation like this? Where do we draw the line between parental love and personal responsibility? Is there a point where tough love becomes the only way forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.